the Zoom, the Zoom world working correctly. So that's why we're stuck with James's name there. Okay. Thank you all for attending our session, our Zazen Kai. About once a month, we have a book discussion during our Saturday morning practice period. Right now, we're reading the Book of Householder Koans by Wendy Nakao and Eve Marco. In the book, they remind us that the Buddha said, "This body does not belong to you, nor anyone else." The authors go on to say that this body, our bodies, are the body of liberation. In the mind of emptiness, this is profoundly true. Our bodies are interconnected with the universe and everything in it, beginningless and endless. But we also live in the world of form. This body is also getting older, and it has aches and pains and infirmities. Eventually, it will die, and I will die. There's a collection of jokes entitled Sayings of the Jewish Buddhist by Rabbi Michael Lerner. He says, "If there is no self, then whose arthritis is this? If this body does not belong to me, then whose pain is this?" The question of sickness, old age, and death is a real one. It's really on my mind because there's a lot of it going on in my family these days. My cousin Wes died last year, leaving a young widow. My brother-in-law suffers from an autoimmune disorder that's painful, incurable, and degenerative. He lives from crisis to crisis. My niece also has an autoimmune disorder that has been misdiagnosed and mistreated for several years. My beloved cousins have the infirmities of old age creeping up on them, as well as replacement ankles and things like that are acting up. My mother is 96. She's getting weaker and more forgetful, and we won't have her for very many more years. James and I have plenty of our own infirmities. I was astonished a couple years ago to have a mild stroke. That's just my family. Friends are dealing with disease, suffering, and dying. There's hardly anyone I know that isn't dealing with pain, illness, in themselves or among their loved ones. In our Zen practice, we face right into this reality. We often chant the 5 remembrances. We did that together this morning. I am of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape ill health. I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love is of the nature of change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. My deeds are my closest companions. I am the beneficiary of my deeds. My deeds are the ground on which I live. We've been chanting the 5 remembrances together for years. It reminds us that there is no escape from old age, ill health, death, and impermanence. In our practice, we lean into that impermanence, and it shows us that every moment, every person, and every object is fleeting and gloriously unique and alive, including ourselves. Buddha nature, right here and right now. And accepting and understanding impermanence takes on a new urgency when I'm in the ER experiencing my own impermanence, or when it's the impermanence of my brother or my cousin, neither of whom I'll ever see again. What do we do with the grief and fear that arises from this impermanence? In Hakuin's Song of Zazen, we chant, "Truly, is anything missing now? Nirvana is right here before our eyes. This very place is the lotus land. This very body, the Buddha." My favorite line is the last one. This very body is the Buddha. But what is my practice when the pain and the suffering of this very body seem like a trap that's inescapable? How do I experience nirvana then? What is my practice when the reality is that my health won't improve? What is my practice when I'm present with the pain and suffering of someone I love? I face into overwhelming questions like this, and I feel like my hands are empty. And I've learned that being empty-handed is a good thing. It's my practice reminding me that we lean into the not knowing. It's reminding me to stop and just be present with the impermanence and the pain and the loss. I remember the instruction we give people who are new to this practice. We tell them to lean into whatever life is bringing them right at that moment. Instead of trying to escape or wrestle with my experience, I remember the simplicity of presence and the powerful practice of not turning away. We recently read When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron. She says, sometimes we are cornered. Everything falls apart, and we run out of options for escape. At times like that, the most profound spiritual truths seem pretty straightforward and ordinary. There's nowhere to hide. Sooner or later, we understand that although we can't make fear or death or pain look pretty, it will nevertheless introduce us to all the teaching we've ever heard or read. There's a teaching that we encounter in our koan curriculum. It's a quote from Dogen. The way of the Buddha is intrinsically accomplished and perfect. The principle of Buddhism is complete freedom. If there is only a bit of difference, it is the distance between heaven and earth. There's only a bit of difference between what? When we try to turn away from what life is bringing us, we cease to be present. When we say, not this isn't how life is supposed to be, we cease to be present. When we try and fight and control the impermanence in our lives and of ourselves and everyone else, we cease to be present. It's the distance between heaven and earth. Pema Chodron says, fear is the natural reaction to moving closer to the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that all things are boundless and endless, including us, and all things are impermanent, including us. Our practice calls us to simply be present with the fear, the pain, the not knowing, and this very fleeting, glorious, unique moment. As Pema says, it will introduce us to all the teaching we've ever heard or read. So, thank you.